Hello, my name is Andrew Welch, and this is my level Sleepy Arcade. The premise of my story is that the player awakens in a strange arcade with several games but no people. It feels abandoned and the player seems to be locked inside. The weather outside seems odd and everything just feels a little unsettling. Is this place even real, or are you trapped in your own dream? Sleepy Arcade is a first-person 3D game with light shooting and sci-fi or horror elements. The horror/sci-fi bit is more about the unsettling setting and strangeness rather than the gameplay itself. For our start, we have the arcade lobby, the prize counter for the end, path 1 leads to the shooting gallery, the path down the center is the main hall, and the path to the right is the snack bar. For the main objective, the player is tasked with collecting 50 tickets, buying the key from the prize counter, and unlocking the exit doors. The first optional objective has the player speaking with an NPC, a cheeseburger who misses his girlfriend. If the player finds her in the level and returns her to him, he will grant the player 25 tickets. For optional objective 2, the player can dig through the trash bins and find several tickets and coins. We have a third optional objective, where the player can play different games by using their collected coins, winning a random number of tickets in return. Since tickets are required for the main objective, I included a fourth optional objective. The player can pay coins at the shooting range and win tickets based on how much damage they do to the dummies. My first mood board is for the arcade entrance and lobby. One thing I liked about these pictures is how inviting the entrances looked. Here is my second mood board, the prize counter. This is the last place the player will need to visit in order to escape. I like the idea of a prize counter having a bunch of otherwise useless items and toys, and then an actual key that opens the locked doors. Next we have the third mood board, and the first path. This one was for the shooting gallery. Originally I wanted something like this, a little scene with several different things to shoot at. Due to time, however, I decided to keep things a bit simpler. On to the fourth mood board, and the second path, the main hall. This board was so that I could better understand the spacing of a typical arcade. You'll notice that real arcades can vary between cramped and spacious. For gameplay's sake, I went with the latter. Cramped spaces don't always work well in games, and it could make many players feel claustrophobic. Mood board number 5 is the snack bar path. Mostly I looked for something that showed the layout and types of tables or chairs that they used. I also wanted to see how much space was between each seating section and of course the counter itself. I noticed snack bars usually hide their kitchens behind a wall and employees need to walk through a door or around a corner to enter it, so I went ahead and implemented that as well. The sixth mood board comes in 2 parts and will showcase several different arcade games. Here we see skee ball, an electric chair game, and a hoops game. The idea was to make several different working games for the player to interact with. Here's part 2 of mood board 6. This one shows 2 different machines, those being the claw machine or crane machine, and a cyclone game machine. Again, I wanted to have these machines be something that the player could interact with and win tickets from. So let's go over the level objectives really quick. For the main objective, players are tasked with collecting 50 tickets and buying the exit key from the prize counter. Rather than have 3 optional objectives, I have 4 since the player would need to do at least one of these to collect enough tickets to leave. For the first optional objective, the player can search the level for a small burger with a pink bow and return her to her worried boyfriend, earning them 25 tickets. For the second optional objective, the player can interact with trash bins and they'll spit out a slightly random number of tickets and or coins. The player can also play some of the game machines for the third optional objective. They interact with the machine to pay some tokens and win a random number of tickets. For the last optional objective, the player can put coins into the shooting range in order to spawn targets and win tickets based on how much damage they do. My level's layout started as the bubble diagram shown on the screen. My goal was to make each path feel unique while maintaining enough things to do in each so that the player wouldn't prefer one over the others. Unfortunately, several of these features have yet to be implemented due to time. This is the initial top-down map derived from the bubble diagram, as well as the legend to the left showing what each icon represents. One of the major issues with this map was that it wasn't apparent where the paths were. Everything just felt like an open space with a few walls thrown up. This is the previous map showing the potential paths that a player could take based on the objectives and starting position. All 3 paths seem mostly equal, with green having just a few more things to see. I reached out to the instructor for their input after making some changes, and we both agreed that this layout was much better. I added more verticality and increased the length of the walls in order to fully flesh out each path. I also decided to use only 1 color per floor in order to clearly show the 3 possible paths that a player could take. I had a lot of different mechanics I wanted to implement. Some have storyboards and some were thought up on the spot. We'll get through these quickly. First, we have collectible items and the ability to interact with objects in the world. Next, we have an inventory system. Although the system we implemented isn't the one seen here, what we have works wonderfully. Of course, we need a lock and key mechanic for the exit door. This is pretty simple. If you don't have the key, the door is locked. If you have the key, the door opens when you interact with it. The original concept for this was to let players accidentally take a bite of the NPC and change the dialogue as a result. As of right now, the player can only speak with the NPC and complete their mini quest. The shooting range doesn't work as it does here, but what we settled on works well enough. It's still pretty challenging and rewarding. There are still several mechanics I wasn't able to implement due to time and scope, but I might return to this project someday. From the top left and going to the right, these are the following mechanics: holding and examining items, cycling through shop items, collecting and reading notes, posters, etc. The hoops minigame, the skee ball minigame, the crane machine minigame, the electric chair minigame, and yes, this is actually an arcade game that you can find in the States, which I thought fit the dark tone of the level really well. And finally, the Cyclone minigame. Here's a list of the references I used for some Unreal tutorials. Shout out to Ryan Laley in general for all the help that he provides on YouTube. I did also use a lot of images in my mood boards and some assets in my level, all of which can be found on my Google Doc here, along with the aforementioned Unreal tutorial references. Alright, so let's take a look at the mechanics. Right off the bat, we have the press E to collect, or press E to interact, I'm sorry. And these are actually collectibles. If you look on the bottom left, you can see the coins are updating with every time we click. So on here we have another mechanic that we added later on. It doesn't actually have a storyboard to it, but it's the trash bin that you can loot. You can get some tickets and coins out of it. If we move down here to the left, we're going to find the shooting range. So it doesn't work exactly like we had it in the arcade. In the storyboards. However, we do have some dummies that pop up, and when we shoot them, we do a random amount of damage, and that damage is reflected in the form of a number that pops up. They also spawn a coin every time they take up to 200 every time they take 200 damage, and then they reset their health back to 0. So that way, every 200 damage that the player does to a dummy, they get a reward. So here we have our shopkeeper. And we can walk up to him and we can press E, and he's selling a key for 50 tickets, but we don't have enough tickets right now. We can also go ahead and check our inventory, which this is also another mechanic that we were talking about. We have 0 items right now. Again, some of these things don't look exactly like we had on our storyboards. However, that can be updated later. What really matters is the fact that they're working. UI can always be changed. We have our NPC that we can talk to, who offers us a quest. So he wants us to go look for his lonely girlfriend. His missing girlfriend. He's lonely. Let's go ahead and find her. And she's over here on the electric chair machine, which unfortunately doesn't work, but we can collect her. And let's go ahead and take her back to her boyfriend and get our reward. So if we look at the bottom left, we have 16 tickets right now. But once we turn her in, she pops up right there, and now we actually have 41 tickets. He gives us a reward of 25 tickets. Here we have the crane machine, and now the crane machine does not work completely like I'd like it to. It is not the minigame that it's supposed to be. However, we can pay 5 tokens to play it and get a random number between 5 and 10 tickets. It will spawn out 5 to 10 tickets. If we come down here, we have 2 more games that do exactly the same thing. But in a different amount. We have the Cyclone machine, which again does not work completely. It's not the minigame that it's supposed to be. However, we can put 3 tokens into it to get 3 to 5 tickets. And over here we have the skee ball, which I believe does the same thing for the same price. Or maybe it's 1 ticket. I believe it's actually 1 token and you get 1 to 3 tickets out of it. I think that is it for the mechanics. The only other mechanic that we need is to buy the key and get out of here. Oh, here we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and buy the key. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our inventory. Okay, this is a bug right here. So let's go ahead and ignore that. Abigail's not supposed to still be in our inventory, but we can always update that. Again, UI can be updated. So let's go ahead and buy our key using 50 tickets. And again, we have another bug there. The tickets do not update. But let's go ahead and find a ticket really quick and see if we can update it to show how many tickets we actually have. Okay, so we bought our ticket right there and we have 1 ticket now. That's the actual number. So again, now we have our key. We can open our doors and our doors open and out we go. And there is the end. And this shows how many things that we collected. This is all our data that we collected throughout the game there. How many coins we collected, how many tickets we collected, the total amount of damage that we did at the shooting range, whether or not we found and returned Abigail, and then the amount of trash bins that we interacted with and looted. So my name has been Andrew Welch, and thank you for watching.